so abra eye Mahama omampanyin dada John Dramani Mahama free eye abanwa ne so no ensem bia na efa Airbus ehun sensem ekoye scandal say yesi oni ni nua no omaye kantamasi no ma bi etia oman Ghana intino ade se ye hwehwem na de no hwehwem eye owura Martin Alamisi Kaiser Amidu Martin Alamisi Kaiser Amidu Martin Amidu ena na ohwehwe sa ensensem no mu ese ade a Mahama ene ne nuanom omay kululu bi efa Airbus yekoto ye ho ana na eno na aba betodwa odofo a wutie mi se sa Airbus no ade a Mahama onim ho hwe onye bibi boni bia na we free special prosecutor your friend Kisie Jabin abra omampanyi na Nana Addo Ba abemu no obe establish no ho say omu bi office special prosecutor na che say ono ahwehwe corruption related issues and offenses omu ye dream katasese proye any kan and on your friend corruption ni twanitia kind of corruption katasese proye and kan just oman sika na ye dwemu mienu na chese obi bibia hye ni botom sadie we Ghana sofa ewo ho ache Agnes Opoku, thank you for coming me da munyamase enti political lovers no say dem make no obi an eni jua yes wasoma no na yenko yanim na enche yene Dr. Kennedy ebetwitwi nkomo na yahwe sedie enoma ebesifa akọ medamu nyina ma asem chiacha mu nyina yes enti no na watwi mu ensem a etwa bi ana etwa guo ni bi na mebebo so ekire no na Ghana elections is bad. Comparing Mahama to Akufo-Addo is like comparing light and darkness. Now way free Manase Azure Eho and Odeba. Hey, na ochemu a chese wo hwe omampanyin Nana Addo otisu sisi adia esuma ye free ni suma eba Missouri asase so no wo hwe Mahama ene Nana Addo dia chese eyesum kabrisi ena Akufo-Addo anase omampanyin Nana Addo dankwa Akufo-Addo otimu na ye ka han dia ono ane ex-president John Dramani Mahama because ochemu na just omu ye very very disappointing government na a disappointment ama Ghana for a disappointing Nana Addo amamuom anko ye nti Manase Azure ena ochirem se han eni esum de na tese eno ana scandal nsensem a na saa time kofo se omampanyin dada Mahama omay dream akofa kantamase ewia Ghana siko so omay ni din o ensem bebre yentie Kisie Jabin yentie sema na
Consequently, the OSP has no evidentiary basis upon which to conclude that Samuel Adam Foster, also known as Samuel Adam Mahama, Philip Sean Middlemis, and Leanne Sarah Davis acted as conduits of bribery between the employees of Airbus and former President John Dramani Mahama or any other public official. Also, the OSP found no evidentiary basis that suggests that Samuel Adam Foster, also known as Samuel Adam Mahama, Philip Sean Middlemis, and Leanne Sarah Davis received payments from Airbus with the intention of bribing former President John Dramani Mahama or any other public official. Further, the OSP found no evidentiary basis that suggests that former President John Dramani Mahama or any other public official was paid bribes by Samuel Adam Foster, also known as Samuel Adam Mahama, Philip Sean Middlemis, and Leanne Sarah Davis in respect of the purchase by the government of Ghana of military transport aircraft from Airbus. Then again, the OSP found no evidentiary basis that suggests that former President John Dramani Mahama or any other public official was induced to improperly favor or did improperly favor Airbus in respect of the purchase by the government of Ghana or military from Airbus. In the case of Sarah Feno, she should not even have been a subject of the OSP investigation. Members of the media, the OSP has cited and notes that by 2 separate communications, both dated 22 April 2021, the SFO in the United Kingdom notified Samuel Adam Foster and Philip Sean Middlemas that a decision had been taken not to prosecute them for any offense in respect of the Airbus Ghana deal. It has not come to the notice of the OSP that the SFO in the UK has reconsidered its decision. We consider it that it ties with our conclusion. Further action. A special prosecutor has directed the closure of the OSP investigation into alleged bribery of high-ranking Ghanaian officials by Airbus SC through intermediaries in respect of the sale of military transport aircraft by Airbus SC to the Republic of Ghana between 2009 and 2015. The OSP would not institute criminal proceedings against any person in respect of this investigation. The special prosecutor has also directed authorized officers of the OSP to rescind the 13 May 2020 warrants of arrest obtained from the Circuit Court, Accra, for the arrest of Samuel Adam Foster, also known as Samuel Adam Mahama, Philip Sean Middlemas, Leanne Sarah Davis, and Sarah Feno. Earlier today, I sent out correspondence notifying Interpol of the withdrawal of the red notices in respect of Samuel Adam Foster, also known as Samuel Adam Mahama, Philip Sean Middlemas, Leanne Sarah Davis, and Sarah Feno.
Okay, episode 4, not just and someone you could see a special prosecutor Kisi Ejabin and your friend is saying a special prosecutor Kisi Ejabin and summary all kind on our didn't some air to just say sa Airbus scandal na Ghana for near the I share on my pain that Mahama ni Adam Mahama any so on my boat dream no according to a year OSP no and ya dear say Ora John Dramani Mahama and any Adam Mahama on my bibia a chance so ana ebroso nti were you more free sir and some na wa notify Interpol na omudi that red list so any pebia na keka ho no omunyina eti esai right yanko all the way to United States of America na yene open here Dr. Arthur Kennedy or a medical doctor or say a politician or say a mechanism or say a journalist or me who be that how medical doctor say a friend say politician ultimate true articles dog true articles ko bebia dog you more about black media GH so umpo say okay hey ebuza for me ba ya yani eba dog mpacho me ba mami enfam fani say na maso ankoye shi aka o you know voice na beba no me paso a minute ebuza for mu hia na ma anya mu no ma no na ya di Dr. Atakere di abahanum enti se bibia eye kama na yene na echichi nkomo right mami nsisa we ni free hanu okay dog me ba na omuntimi enti won kapa just okay me hwe okay dog ba toka sa me okay hey ni no money bi we ba cho me ba you better establish contact in this year because you try out no na ekuye but e ko epe na ensem no asase e ba dog but me ba na me establish contact but mo share video no na yenko yanim I'm sure because me nim the reason why I do say pe enya ko air na fe ne home one sorry thank you Candice for air stars and you try na ye dey dog abba yeah okay I'm sure dog ba toka salinti or kasa but yenti ono no enka right yenti ono no nka minim the reason why aban say ya try anu sisia enti in the meantime no yen sase na memfa phone no dog Jamie the phone efro na intimi to adwumadie no so me yapa na me pese omuhu etew kasa no o say ye try ano na bibia koye but uba air na e different okay yanko fa ne wo phone ne so na emma adwumadie no enya kama ne ye ne enko yenko fa ebusafo we de mo fa nche me se mo anhu ni sa de na me pese ono ekasa ma moti na ama ne sa okay dog me ba to mpom ti say we de sometimes minim dia na esi na ubun se eyi na emma me dia ne ba kama e wa ha but minim the reason why I feel the frewa audio no so emma minim the reason why until the encoso ne enye no audio na ye ntwetwe enkomo ye ma akwa aba ediba Black Media GH2 once again. Hello dog. Hello eba you see how it take ye ma akwa aba bibia abokọ de okay the nyankopon ase ebusafo ba no ase ye ni Dr. Arthur Kennedy and ever twetwe nkomo afa Ghana memuo you know the ekoso even in the United States of America dog ensu di mu akotene in terms of politics no and so onim ehu ensem pa na no madam bi ka che me say dog ohun article bi wo I start to be corrected. The University of Wisconsin, and who can omo a group bi wo ho ana.
Actually, me call Medical College of Wisconsin.
Oh,
okay. That's why I did my residence.
Okay. And untina madam for the castle who all right. Matiasi. Okay. Echo no David Diamond this year the echo no bia wontin yo ye mo akwaba dog ma yenko entertain na yenhwe enoma edapono so first of all you are new to madofo ni bebre omo hwe yen ene ana omutie yen ewo Facebook yi so yenko achi kakra bi Ghana nkasa dog himfa na ofi
me fi Central Region but Mama Mefi Central Region, but my papa fi Eastern Region.
Oh.
And Volta Region. And I grew up in Ashanti.
What? Hey, David Dog, Samu Bosubi. Samu Bosubi.
I have Fanti and Krobo parents. My mother is Fanti. I was born in the Volta Region.
Hey.
And I grew up in Kumasi. I'm a Kumasi boy.
Wow. There's a Ushima 3 regions or 1, 2, 3, 4 Central, Eastern, and Volta and Ashanti.
Yeah, and I went to university in Greater Accra, of course.
Wow. Let's say all angles. Intina, again, politics mu. Chemu kaga. Again, who call politics mu.
I don't know. As a child, I was always interested in politics, and actually, even in secondary school.
In secondary school,
a lot of my teachers were very unhappy. They thought that I should have done arts. As my English teacher said that he thought I would have made a wonderful lawyer. So I was always interested in public affairs. Those who went to school with me in secondary school would always say that.
Wow. And then I will amanyo ensemu. Okay. Now, dog, me can be far during Rawlings time. Again, now only other students, colleagues, now more fighting ma Ghana. Now, then see Samren. Tamaku ni buy.
Yeah, I actually was JCR president of Commonwealth Hall. Now, in that role, unfortunately, that was when the 3 judges and a retired army officer were abducted and killed. And during that time, there was a lot of fear on campus. And I was one of those people who argued that the students had a responsibility to speak up. In my mind, and I felt that whether we like it or not, the actions of students around 1981-82 had given the public the impression that we supported the PNDC, whether that was our intent or not. So I felt that if the PNDC was doing bad things, like a curfew and killing people and whipping women in public and all that, we couldn't then say that on fire. So we needed to go on the record. So as a result of my speech, we went on demonstration against the murder of the judges.
Time I you judges no. Saturday now we are active now. We don't want to memo.
I was hall president of Commonwealth Hall. So as a result of me leading that demonstration, the workers of Ghana, under the PNDC, they were called, march onto the university and closed it down. And they sacked 4 students, including myself and Asamoah Boateng. So when school reopened, the students said workers can't sack students. So if we didn't come to school, there will be no school. So they readmitted us.
Wow.
Right after that, they were contesting for Nook's president.
Yeah.
So people persuaded me to contest, and the PNDC did everything they could to, in effect, prevent me from winning, but I won anyway. So basically, as soon as I won, the lines were set that there was going to be a confrontation with the government. So when we went to KNUST for our Nooks Congress, the Congress was invaded by miners brought in from Obuasi by the government. And there was a fight on the campus of KNUST, during which the buses that brought the miners were bent.
Okay.
And the next day, Legon went on demonstration to protest the attack on students who were having a peaceful conference. So the government closed the universities down. And we all went home. While we were home, we held a press conference calling on the government to hand over to an elected government.
Maybe our dog, that time now, soldier buying Omapenya when you baby call Rollins time no a tuoni ye bomb ma said the Okano or my association no most a press conference account.
Yes, Cultural Center, fully attended by local and foreign media. So 2 weeks after that, there was the June 19th abortive coup. So the government claimed that students were involved in it. So they declared me wanted, dead or alive, and said that they were looking for other people to arrest. So me and about 3 other student leaders, including Damboche and Asamoah Boateng, went to exile in the Ivory Coast.
Wow.
And were there for about a year as UN refugees. So when the schools reopened, we came back. And I was arrested, taken to the police headquarters and interrogated. And then as a result of protests by students, I was released on my own recognizance. And I was supposed to report to the police every day.
Wow.
So after about a year of that, I said I wasn't going to report anymore. So the IGP invited me to come to police headquarters.
Who was the IGP at the time? Not your friend saying.
Omane. Mr. Omane.
Okay.
He asked the vice chancellor to bring me with him. When we went there, he and the vice chancellor and I talked for about 15 minutes. Then he asked the vice chancellor to excuse us.
Okay.
When the vice chancellor did, the IGP told me that he wanted to apologize for all that happened to me. He said that I was the age of some of his grandchildren, and that in his view, in most other countries, what people like me and other student leaders were doing would be considered very routine. It is what, to quote him, civilized countries do. So he felt embarrassed that I was being harassed and persecuted because of that. But then he added that I should keep in mind that, quote, we are dealing with mad people. That was the IGP. So you should be careful.
Wow. And then let's say, Ushumwa, that time no IGP no at the time and we call police headquarters or no. Then say or support me in a way, but no one want me out. Emeka to one who say kukuo mu no. And our church say look, the more you need the nanka no ano nenso so show hu yi. Cause no mind why you.
Yeah, but actually, me, that is part of why I have contempt for so many Ghanaians and how we do things. It is amazing how in private, so many people tell you that what you are doing is right, and then in public, they condemn what you are doing. And all the way, I remember as NUC's president, while we were rousing the students to go on demonstration, a reverend minister who has since passed on, so I won't mention his name, called me to advise me that we should stop what we are doing. And I said, so Reverend, explain something to me. Your generation brought up my generation. And you told us to always tell the truth. We got you. We got your message. We are doing exactly what you raised us to do, tell the truth. What are we doing wrong? And he said, I was there how I've been cried, you know. And I can give you so many examples of that. And the surprising thing is that doesn't only happen under military government. Even under our political dispensation, whenever I have taken on the MPP on some issues in private, a lot of people have agreed with me. And some of them have condemned me in publicly. There are even people who get into trouble, I defend them, and as soon as they get rehabilitated, they turn around and attack me as a sign of their loyalty to the powers that. So I think that in my life, you know, I've gone to a lot of great schools and great institutions, been to about 3 universities in North America. I was at Legon Hall, but being in Commonwealth Hall was the defining experience of my life. I like our commitment to truth and to community.
Wow. Hey, Doc, are you still an MPP member?
Yes. And why would you ask me that?
No, because said yeah, Nancy, you said that first because of course I say political activist. It's normally no na say MPP we see the crowd position be a just say we a party member, just an ordinary member, and I say saying into my busa or because me hunu same paying for no 10 bia me know what American TDR, I don't know.
That may be part of it, but when I go home, I talk to them, and actually, when in the course of this government's tenure, I've sent them a lot of proposals, and in my view, they had followed it. Maybe the government will be in better shape than it is. But having said that, I actually am not concerned about my status in the MPP. I'm concerned about my status as a Ghanaian. I take my citizenship of Ghana more seriously than my membership of the MPP.
Okay.
I always say that whatever people say, I say my country is of thee. And the other people who say my party right or wrong. But I am never in doubt. I will always put my country ahead of my party.
Thank you. I know the reason why I'm busa is because stepping back, I can't actually come on Eddie Coy anymore. And I'm busa question because I remember when you wrote chasing the elephant into the bush, you know. Doc, when you say honey, the beginning and the genesis of mechanism manihunu one castle party for binum Eddie Bar also. When you chasing the elephant into the bush.
Yeah. That's a valid point. But you know, my view is that, and me, I always feel that you should never give people advice you are not prepared to take. I think part of why Ghana doesn't progress is that we don't write. So, for example, when I hear that Manasseh has written, I'm happy. I am happy that people like Samu Kujeto and Ivan Ademensa and Apia Minka have written the book. These are the things that help societies to grow, because otherwise our history is lost. I mean, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Nkrumah, when he was going to decide that we should build Akosombo Dam, I know, for example, that he had two proposals. The other proposal was to build 4 small dams across the country, including 4 of them, not just one big one like Akusum. I, for example, would love to see what kind of conversations went on around the cabinet while Nkrumah was deciding to build the one big Akosombo Dam rather than the small one. I want to know, for example, what kind of conversations went into declaring one party state. You know, and that is not just about Nkrumah, for example. I would have loved to have Rawlings write a book so we know what kind of conversations went on when they were deciding to have the 31st December coup and about the conversations about handing over. Because we don't know a lot of history. So, for example, I read history a lot. I know that part of why our military was radicalized leading to the 1966 coup was our involvement in the Congo. Because a lot of Ghanaians don't know it. Afrifa, Kotoka, Ankara, and even Kojochikata were all in the Congo as part of the Ghanaian contingent. And a lot of people don't know it. But when Lumumba was sacked by Kasavubu and he sought to make a radio address in the Congo, it was the Ghanaian contingent under the command of General Kotoka who prevented him from making the broadcast. Even though Nkrumah wanted him to make the broadcast, the UN didn't want him to, and Kotoka decided to follow the UN.
Wow. Enti na metiase ya dog chere Ghana and Africa ankasa no taking records, writing down your history, you know, and we should start doing it.
Yeah, we should. And for example, one of the books about Africa that I really liked was by Odinga, the father of Kenya's Raila Odinga. And the book was called Not Yet to Rule. He laid out all the problems of early Kenya and the corruption problems and all that. It was very, very good. You know, I have, for example, researched the formation of the OAU, and I'm hoping that maybe time permits, I might do a book on it. And I have declassified State Department cables about what happened in the room in Addis Ababa between Nkrumah and Sekuturi and Haile Selassie. It's a little different from the public things we know.
Wow. And where the who been here say before and as a Ghana. Ni bebre yanka say history. And so be na beba trauma ye dachi MY cry. Yeah, that's a dog or horse odi.
And it has always been the case. You know, for example, Ghana, the people we call the Big Six. Have you realized that it was the British who picked 6 people and we call them the Big Six? Why should the British pick our Big Six?
And yet, paying for a copy, but rather no English for a pick your mumai.
There was a rouse. Then the British decided, as a result of the disturbances, they were detaining some people.
Yeah.
So they picked 6 people to detain, and the 6 people became the Big Six in our eyes. And if you think about it, there are other people who are more deserving of being in a Big Six to the extent that there is a Big Six. For example, Nick Kwabena was the organizational genius behind the 1948 riots in which they attacked Awam merchants. And Nick Kwabena is not part of the Big Six. Without him, maybe we don't get independence as quickly as we did. Let me give you another person. It was Pa Grant who mobilized people for the UGCC and started the political movements that would eventually lead to UGCC, lead to the CPP and independence, including bringing Nkrumah to Ghana.
Wow.
Why is not part of the Big Six? But for K. Bedema, Nkrumah would have been forgotten in prison. He was the person who kept the CPP together and Nkrumah's image alive. And actually, he declined a bribe from American and British authorities to break away from Nkrumah, and that might have made him the first Prime Minister of Ghana. He refused. Why is Bedema not part of the Big Six?
Wow. I was Dr. Arthur Kennedy and Yanene Edwin come all the way from United States of America. Ghana need this year, said the Munim no Ghana paying for or count pay okasa ebemu like omo to adwene all the way from America nenso otimi echrochro no ma ni mpemfo di nkita ho ema enoma nso etimi ekoso kama ewo eye oman Ghana mu ono na na nwumre ye ne etwetwe nkomo fa amanyosem ho ye koto aba December 7th na ansa na be move to Ghana de no quickly or America intino ye musa dog America ora Donald Trump na say na enkofo bi pese omo ye ne nyadoa adai ne ho eye enkofo ahinsa ana
no but hopefully this thing was just a lone person trying to do that. But to be honest, the margin, it is quite known in American history since 1860. It used to be that almost every president elected in a 0 year had an assassination attempt, sometimes successful, sometimes unsuccessful. So as you can find out, Lincoln, for example, Harding, what do they call it, John Kennedy, So quite a few of them were successfully assassinated. Even Reagan recently had an assassination attempt on him. Gerald Ford had 2 assassination attempts on him. Both didn't work. Even FDR had an assassination attempt that didn't work. So it happens quite a bit, and Trump was very lucky. He was very lucky to escape it. Wow. And the Americans, as usual, are investigating how it happened. The director of Secret Service has already resigned, and people think there might be more resignations, and there might even be prosecutions about what failures led to the attempt being made, because apparently they knew at least 10 minutes before Trump got on the stage that there was somebody out there, and they still allowed him to get on the stage. So people are asking questions about why, if they knew somebody was there and they hadn't neutralized the person, they will let Trump mount the stage.
Wow, until that just say, and then some akoye issue on Mona. Osha, or chance say, Afia Batui, or Obewini.
Yeah, he has a very good chance. I mean, his chance was much better with Biden than now. Now the race has changed a little bit, and Kamala has a lot of excitement behind her. But history and the issues are still a little bit with Trump, because incumbent vice presidents normally don't succeed in getting elected directly to the presidency. Actually, since Martin Van Buren did it in 1836, the only one who has done it was 1988 by George H.W. Bush. So that is a very steep history to overcome if you are an incumbent vice president. Having said that, when you look at the issues, more Americans agree with Trump on the issues about lower taxes, drilling oil, border security, anti-abortion. All those issues, they trend a little bit for Trump, but people like Kamala more than Trump as a person.
As a person, no, but ideologies, policies, the Americans will vote for Trump. Said yeah, no more con the one who beat me winning. Sana besoche. Dog, me know Casa had why wouldn't himself from since time immemorial. Adofo amutie me Dr. Arthur Kennedy yeneno isasi and in the sense of say yeah komo from radio days many years ago na ne ya sabaha. Na dog, wouldn't say me listeners ni bebre na ewa America na o ka say Trump baby ni no me hu say bi mu bobo mo hwene ewo ohwe ade na ohunu ni say Trump beti me wi no omo bobo mo hwene wa hapa.
I didn't say obe winning. I'm like, saying
probably no, but
he has a good chance.
Okay.
It has become more even now with Kamala. But before then, Trump was seen as the favorite by a lot of people. For now, it's about tied. So it is too close to call at this time. And I'm just saying, the history and issues are on Trump's side. Yeah. People like Kamala more. That's what I'm saying.
Then Irish any American some about toji mu nipa mbeto amano abatoa na edi manimu eba afiwe mu no say Trump na besade amano say mobema vice president and so take lead ni nyina Dems or Republicans.
And as you know, in the US, it's not just about the general poll.
Yeah.
You can win the popular vote and still lose the election.
Electoral college.
Electoral college. And sometimes you can be ahead even in the general polling and still lose the electoral college.
I know most of the time, the dog, the meaning is Democrats, I think say public polls now, I start to be corrected though, but most you better about electoral college,
Yeah, about that is a recent phenomenon though. Most of the time, Nanka electoral college, any popular vote, they fight together.
Okay.
So, I mean, there have been a few times when there have been divergence, but these days the divergence is becoming more frequent.
Yeah.
But otherwise, most of the time, for example, a lot of people don't know it, but Bill Clinton never got 50% of the votes in America, even though he won big landslides in terms of the electoral college. He never got 50%.
Wow. Oh, okay. Okay, wow. It was Dr. Kennedy now. I make small analysis view and then American voters. American voters. Obi a chena good. It's a hesedi ebeko. Ye to abani wi a nyame yadoma. Menim say bia be say nya dog ansa na abato ko aba after abato no na afi yahwe. Now yenko yedie mu. Odofo one mobile ubetima live so edema no a share video no ama me maka to say strictly politics and ne enwumre na ye new open kese yi na wanya mre dia ma internet say ye ko ye nimu e wo sa kwan so yenko oman Ghana mu dog ma me fan fiti ase recent happenings aba nanu ya I'm say the special prosecutor Dr. Kisi Ejaben nanu ya edibetu dwa say emre bi Airbus noma bi a ora Martin Alamisi Amidu Kaiser edibetu dwa say ohwehwem ene ehonum ne ebenya the special one na ebi mu kire say or refer to Omanpanyin His Excellency John Dramani Mahama na owoso kane no ono na or refer no as a special one ehun sensem be ye bubruja ewo Oman Ghana mu na ababeto dwa say special prosecutor say ora Mahama ni nwa ni nipa bia na ye bubo mudini e di yensa tenetene wo mo so no Airbus no ma no omunim ho hwe dog wadwen kire wo sa ensensemu anything.
I'm surprised to hear that. In fact, I think that Emiankasa, to be fair, I have never been a fan of the Office of Special Prosecutor, and I've made that public repeatedly.
Why?
But having said that, why is because it is a philosophical question, and I don't want to divert. Let me finish.
Okay.
Responding to this, then we talk about the philosophical question.
Okay.
I think that Kisi Ejaben's conclusions, we need to know what new things he learns.
Okay.
That will make him disagree with what Amidu's findings were. Having said that, I actually thought that Amidu kind of really put Mahama and others in a very difficult situation when he almost indicted them but left it hanging. Then it's difficult to clear your name because nobody is charging you with anything, but people are always accusing you of things. And see, I don't like such things. I think if you have enough things to charge him, you put it on the table and you take him to court. If you think he cannot be charged, then you shouldn't say that, because if you do that, you put him under a cloud. So having said that, I don't know the basis on which either Amidu or Kisi Ejaben said what they said. So I like to see more documents and more information, because I want to be sure that when I go stand somewhere and say this person is guilty or innocent, I know what I'm talking about. So, having said that, let me talk about the philosophical thing. I think Ghanaians are very interesting that whenever there is a problem, we get busy and pretend to do something so that we can tell people we are solving. The idea that the Office of Special Prosecutor will check corruption never passed muster with me. I feel that we have enough laws on the books and enough agencies in Ghana to check corruption if we were minded to check it.
Okay.
We have an Attorney General who can prosecute. We have Siraj, which can investigate certain things. We have the police. After all, this is a country where people who go and steal other people's fowls and cassava can be charged.
Yes.
So if a minister who in all her term cannot earn $1 million, have millions of dollars in her house, and we don't think she has questions to answer, it's not because we don't have enough offices. It's because we lack the will to do the right thing. If a president wants to check corruption, there are enough laws on the books to check corruption. The same thing, people will say, oh, we need to change our constitution. We need constitutional amendments. Let me give you some news. Ghana's constitution is 3 times the length of America's constitution, even though America has existed for more than 200 years and they have 10 times our constitution. They have 10 times our population. And by the way, Britain ruled the whole world without even a constitution. So I don't think our problem is the constitution. It is, if you boil it down, the fact that the very people who are supposed to protect the public purse are the same people looting it. The watchmen are their control. That's what our problem
is. And you know, just Doc, you've made a very good point. A year Shraj, your institution like Shraj, your Attorney General. But Mikai that time on Omanpei and another Danko Kufuado Ebano. Now I say he is going to establish this office of special prosecutor to deal with corruption and corruption related offenses. Near you just ask on over specialize it and will no maybe a Attorney General so any Shraj no as a na omwadumano a dawson dodo. But as one making it simple, crazy some institutions way so and come back to me aye adwuma kama pa. Is it the case to say Oman penny a year Obama ba Ghana no? One thing I remember pa odija Ghana for penny for me did say say yam fanya juma ye say we should build strong institutions rather than building strong men, like making people powerful and all that. Yema institutions no mum enya powerful. Say yam fanya juma and I only say dog.
Yeah, I'm fine, Juma, but to be fair about it, I mean, Obama was only partly right, but I'll get to that later.
Okay.
But having said that, as you can see now, our institutions have been weakened by Nana Akufo-Addo. Interesting. If Auditor General Department, look at how they sacked Domilovo. Look at what we've done with the Supreme Court, to the extent that even Kandapa had to warn that if one side keeps winning so often, it undermines confidence in the courts. Look at system. How we remove the leadership of the Electoral Commission. All those things undermine institutions. But having said that, of course, Obama was right that we need strong institutions, but he omitted one word. We need good, strong institutions.
Okay.
Everybody knows that our NIB or special branch, whatever it has been called, is a very strong institution if you get in these tentacles. Everybody knows that the police is a strong institution. But a lot of times, they show bad strength. They don't show good strength. What Obama was saying was that we need institutions acting for the good of the country.
Okay.
I also think that actually we need strong men who will do the right thing. For example, and by the way, talking about the Attorney General and others being overworked, Manasseh Azuri Awuni and a few other people on shoestring budgets have unearthed more corruption than a lot of our corruption agencies combined. I don't know what they are busy with. I don't know what they are busy with. So I think that it all goes to the spirit and attitude of the president, whether the president is intent on fighting corruption. I mean, if you form the Office of Special Prosecutor, they put Amidu there because they had assurances from Rawlings that, he won't give them trouble. And you notice he left as soon as Rawlings died. Or Kisia Japin has been very close to Nanado and the Chebi Mafia for a long time. So when they put Kisia Japin there, they are sure that he's not going to give them trouble. So in essence, the problem is not the constitution and the paper and the time. We always have red herrings. Our problem has never been that we don't have enough laws on the books. It has never been that our constitution is not long enough. Because, let's face it, Achampong for the first 2 years of his regime didn't have any constitution, but he did a very good job before he was captured by corruption and other people. And we have a very long constitution. Look, we won't need any change in our constitution for our parliament to start doing serious, effective executive oversight. It is not the constitution. It is because they won't do it. We don't need a constitution to cap the number of our Supreme Court judges. Tomorrow, Parliament can pass a law capping the number of our Supreme Court judges. Whatever the Constitution does not forbid can be done by law. It's just that we don't do it. And see, look, they will tell you about how we need constitutional amendments and all that. I remember a few years ago, they said, the Auditor General had gone to court and the Supreme Court had given him powers to charge ministries.
Exactly, yeah.
Charge ministry. That was Sebi because if there is money missing in a ministry, there are two places where you can solve that problem. One is the presidency. If I'm president and I read in the papers or see an auditor's report saying that you as a minister, there's 20 million missing in your ministry, the next day I'll call you to Jubilee House to explain to me how the 20 million got missing. And you will show up. You know why you will show up? Because you know I can fire you. That's why you show up. Or Parliament, when it comes to the next budget, will say, Minister, last year, your ministry, we can't account for 20 million. Until we know how that money got lost, we are not passing your budget.
Exactly.
Places all over the world where you solve that problem. This thing about the president doesn't care and the Parliament doesn't care, but the Auditor General is chasing the minister, nothing will happen.
Dr. Arthur Kennedy, Busafo, and any education come Utimus, open, and some no, Wakadri or Amanyo Semno. Na, Doc, what can be big a craft far? Say, Oman Payne, Nanado, weakening institutions, no by, who make examples, how they removed the former Electoral Commission, Madame Charlotte say, one or two examples, or the two, Jano. Not to say, suddenly you Oman Payne, Nanado Nanko Kufuado, no. It's not like San and yes, and net yet, because near the end, him say, or Beshanima rather, but examples outside here and actually my say, then it means that, or no, he's not in favor of strengthening institutions and society in Pachoa.
I don't know that we saw him wrong or that he changed. I don't know which of them. Because actually, there was a time when I actually admired him because I've told people this before, so I can tell you this again.
No, I
don't. And he told me once, he said, we sitting there one-on-one, he said, me, I don't like the presidential system. I like the prime ministerial system. And besides, I said, why? Also, the presidential system gives one person too much power. And that was very admirable for somebody seeking the presidency to say. Also, because the prime ministerial system, if you get too bossy, your colleagues will bring you in line because you are only the first among equals. That was a very admirable thing for him to say. And he's done very admirable things in his life, including dating back from his days in the PMFJ, going to court, help the AFRC people convicted wrongly them or organizing Kumipreko. But this president, Akufo-Addo, and that Akufo-Addo who became president, they are different.
Dog, maybe you better be see Saha Nibu. Kumipreko, Mano, now Kahon, Satan now Kahon Bina, Muye Kumipreko.
They not mean count.
Okay.
I actually was in Ezra.
Okay. Right. Back to somehow. Okay. Not just say. So in your opinion, so we can describe or say. Omapeyi Mahama Omapeyi Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is the worst president ever we ever Ghana and saying. Is he the worst ever president?
I don't want to say the worst because we are not done with him yet, but he's been a bad president.
In terms of decision making, any policies, no, and I send it here because
all of them. First, you say you are going to protect the public purse. You are going to protect the public purse. Public Procurement Authority, the person you pick to head Public Procurement Authority, had already had ethical problems and been sanctioned under Akufo. Even if you were shady, at least public procurement, you should go through the motions of picking an honest person. The person goes to sit at public procurement, forms a private company that gets contracts under the table that he resells. And we had a public procurement minister. We have a board of directors of public procurement. And you know who found that out? Manasseh Azuri-Awuni, as an independent journalist. So what were all those people doing? Then you have double the number of ministers every other government has had, and you go for 7 years without a reshuffle. You know, the corruption was not the exception; it was the norm under this government. And I think that without solving corruption, you can never have a successful government.
And you know, just say you're here there because corruption and some scandals bebre apie ewo eye amemwo imu simple. And you know, just say family and friends in normal so you never expected say that now because once upon a time when in a tuana or show the type of government and all prime minister rather than presidential one no and yes I nipa no na ene uhunu say or didn't some adwuma and yes I dog.
No, yes, he's been a very different president from the one I and a lot of other people expect. And I just never thought he would be this bad.
And Kofo Bebre, Black Media, GH, Yane, Dr. Kennedy, Chuchinkomo, Nkomo Chucho, and Tina Hun is a one-on-one conversation. Efa Ghana, and a can crony about to a year or two. Yane no Chuchinkomo, Yabako Yanimune do about to one so at the end. Na, yeah, oh, maybe I want to sound in ye. Multi sound in okay, dog about a minute. I think say Imwa faint kakra. I don't know why. Na means and funny Dr. Kennedy to bomb pupa and yasel kita. Maybe I thought what happened this year. Why be news or tonight? Yeah, Sandra. Hello, doc. But what do you mean? Hello, doc. But what do you mean? Aha, to see the voice na sound na say okay. Yes. Na me ka say in some akoso nkofo bebre accuse Omapeyi Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo say one na busuafo akoye family and friends bi no ma na ekoso na Ghana die nka yenye ne sa wadwen kire ewo ho. Do you think say just normal and sensema ye can rumors ya ekoso and asa wo de wani ehwemu a dia family and friends ekoso wa by way?
Yeah, I mean, this is self-evident. Family and friends is going on. And I think that, you know, to be fair to him, I think a lot of his family members are very well educated and talented. But having said that, you know, there are other things you consider in addition to talent when you are forming a government. So, for example, you can't form a government of all ministers coming from the gut, right? Or all ministers coming from Ashanti, regardless of how talented Ashantis are. You know, and in the same way, regardless of how talented your family is, there are limits to how many people you can put in your government. You know, so I think we failed that test. Aside from that, you know, even when we get past that, there are things that have happened. For example, we do COVID airport tests and we award a contract to somebody who doesn't even have a license to do business in Ghana. And some Okoji business license. Then when the two ministers who are responsible, finance and health, go for parliamentary approval and they ask them, neither of them can explain how that person got the contract. And they are still passed to go and be ministers. I mean, how do you do that? Those things are unacceptable. We say that free SHS, we contract a company to get the senior high schools Wi-Fi services. And for about 2 years, they haven't provided the service, but they are being paid. How does that happen? You know, I mean, we have, what do they call it? People dying from dialysis. People, 4 million Ghana cedis, and at the same time, we are spending millions building a cathedral. Even while, what do they call it? Missions are building hospitals to help our healthcare. The government is building a cathedral of our national resources.
Not just say, Doc, me tell you, there are a whole lot of misplaced priorities. Ekoswo, Nana do danko Kufuado, or my paying, Amemo Imupa. Just a misplaced priorities, baby. Ekoswo.
Yeah, it is. And in fairness, you know, that has been the pain of the Fourth Republic, that there's been, you know, too much corruption and misgovernance. You know, we haven't gone to the economy yet, but, you know, there is one thing that keeps sitting on my conscience, and I can never get around it, that since Rawlings, every government in this Fourth Republic will start a housing project. And somehow they manage to do it 70 to 80% and they leave it. Then the next government will come and go and borrow new money to start a new project. Then they will do it to 70 to 80%. They will leave. Then the next government will borrow new money. I mean, how the hell do we keep doing that to ourselves? And Parliament cannot say no until we go and finish the old one. We're not going to approve for you to do new ones. We keep doing that. And talking about irresponsible running of the economy, we finance reckless spending with reckless borrowing. And we get our debt to GDP ratios over too high. Then we go to the IMF. Now we're going for the 17th time. There's no Ghanaian who is not convinced that we are going to go again. Because, look, this IMF relief program that they wrote, if you went to see Kwame Pianim and he went to sit in his Abri weekend retreat for a weekend, he could have written the same program. You know, we keep going again and again because every time we go back to reckless spending and borrowing. If you compare us to, say, Ivory Coast went to the IMF they had a liquidity program. We have a liquidity program, but we also have an insolvency program. We are bankrupt.
Dog, what back side do not jump into and also onto the election train na afiyemfa enremu enko yenim. Enche ye kwa kotwaba. Na I know say first thing Ghana ni bia ehwe pa. And so what twaba na sitinem de bia no na ya ne kase ya hwe asitinem na twaba hwe asitinem na twaba. And so na MPP ba aban mu no na Omanpanyin John Dramani Mahama ne na pamfo. In fact campaign no ye kai pa nipa bebre including myself. Ye ba say pa ye say enko ye ahokyere wo ho, you know, ye cansem pa say enya de a wo bo no homodin nti ye ntu no. Now MPP ba ye nya obi like Dr. Alhaji Bawumia, Muhammadu Bawumia. Oye I don't know now. So that's why you're head of economic management team there. But you know, say bank kuntabuo economy. Any idea? Time ana MPP opposition. No, man lectures. Me just ye boy and some. Me hunu say ampa wabeni wumu. Na oba na obeboa na nadwa. Ghana economy no ebe fly pa ako intentem. Omoba ye no anche emua after I think the first time no na COVID edin who be mu no COVID aba no ma bebre na say economy take it off at that time no na corona virus ye ba ye enema amemo no ti san ye enu mu achi na ase ye di pimpim ye ho na Ukraine Russia war and say Russia Ukraine war so edin who be ji mu eno so ye say eno ma bebre free Ukraine na eba achoki aye say. In fact, ama enam no ka say the enim say Ghana economy no ni sisi center boat nyina ehujo. Were you expecting say and who be cause the economy ya na doc?
I mean, you just said the media people were all saying Nema Moed. So using the same criteria, you can tell us whether Nema Moed. You know, I think when you look at the tendency to use external excuses, I know very soon they'll be saying that the Middle East war has disrupted our economy. I mean, even Ukraine is still exporting, what do they call it, agricultural products, even though they are fighting the war. So I think that, you know, these things affect all of us, but sometimes they become excuses rather than true reasons. You know, yes, the COVID harmed the whole global economy, but Ghana got about $3.5 billion US in COVID relief from, you know, the World Health Organization, World Bank, bilateral partners. You know, that's a lot of money. And let me tell you some of what we did with that money. For example, we decided, even though nobody has documented that spraying stops COVID, we decided to spray Legon, where all the students had gone against COVID. And we said that cost 500 million cedis. And of course, all the Legon professoriate were there to lend it credibility. That was just a classic loot and share. The government also decided that to help COVID, we will distribute money. We have a Ministry of Health, we have Ministry of Local Government, we have Ministry of Education, we have churches. But they decided that that money will be distributed by party functionaries. And the budget review, we claimed that we gave about 20-something million people hot meals. Really? You know, I mean, that money was just looted and shared by people.
Hey,
you know, we're not serious.
Sika chuchiri die ni nyina no ya ade a na eyenkofo koko season na nya ade a omudi ye adwuma na omo ka no.
You are a journalist. Think about it. The government has a lump of money for COVID relief. And to distribute it, we have Ministry of Local Government, we have Ministry of Health, we have educational facilities, we have hospitals, churches, we have mosques who deal with people on social interventions and others. We have NGOs, and they decide to let party functionaries share the money. So why didn't we let NDC people share some of the money too?
Not just it was about Obabola and Sumame and I'm catching on the strictly politics. Thank you, be all these stars about lyric and Amina was America for no dog or more energy or submission. No, papa. I must say, hey, where the Gucci, Dr. Arthur Kennedy can seminar or can you team some pa and for Ghana? Now I think it's about time Ghana, as I said, yes, a certain woman, yes, a certain woman. Okay, Enti na chese sa time COVID ni mre no na chese NDC fo no na sa ta won bo asema na okay me kai pa na NDC fo bo ho pa ye se COVID sika no aso mo kamu esu ba na yen fire so en mo mo sa papa ana me kan se Ghana fo en se na enhwe ho ye because you feel say omo e wo position. Don't you think say it is about time to see an say amemo no yetimi embroidery no na ye jai say party we renew na bibia beba no the other friends opposition party can be yemfa nya adwuma. How can we grow Ghana was our character, dog. They know who feel say, yeah. Need me get to be on board.
A leadership. And actually, as Kwesi Prempeh said, I don't want to take credit for it. We are having serial one-party states or one-party governments. So we have the MPP one-party government for 4 to 8 years. Then we get the NDC one-party government for 4 to 8 years. That's what we are doing. And a lot of times the media is complicit. A lot of these things that is happening, rigorous political reporting could have exposed a lot of these things. But the media, to be fair, not just the media, even the NGOs, including churches, the same religious leaders who ask Enyansafo no way when one party is in power, when the other party get into power and we don't see Enyansafo, they don't demand Enyansafo. And we got very respected priests to lend their names to building a cathedral, which has become a millions of dollar hole in the ground. When kids are going to school and the trees, that's the kind of thing that moral religious leaders should call out and condemn. And we didn't see that. And by the way, this talk about, I gonna be, I just say, we have to change our morals near there. That is good. That is good. Ordinary Ghanaians, thousands of them get on planes every week and they land in London and Frankfurt and New York and wherever. The next day they go to work and show up on time. They drive according to the speed limits. They obey all the laws. Isn't that the same Ghanaians who are doing that?
Yeah.
The idea that problem is who Ghana for now. That's what leadership is supposed to do. This idea, let me give you one big secret.
Okay.
I don't believe, with few exceptions, in quote-unquote the masses. The Kume Prekun wasn't a mass uprising. It was Nana Addo and 5 other people who organized it. 31st December wasn't a mass uprising. It was Rawlings and a few friends who organized it. Even the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, with Lenin arriving on that train, it wasn't a mass uprising. Organization decides everything. All countries that have made progress, it has been a few committed, patriotic, altruistic leaders who have turned it around. We don't need the masses to change. Good leadership will change them. Good laws, good enforcement, checking corruption among the big people, deciding good policies, building strong institutions. That's what we need.
Wow. Na it was for and come on you go to your elections in na dog. Do you think say based on said the attrition come and I said we say we enye bosremuka ensem, these are all things there for us to see said a normal air coso or MPP amemu and heading towards the elections no. Sisia the wabefa Francano him my MPP Dr. Alhaji Muhammad Bawumia any ne running mate Napo. Now yen fan chance Dr. Bawumia honum. Do you think say Omanpeyin Nana Addo ne normal why ne some yakika ne decision bia ebimu to ebinum enkoye obviously to MPP for num bebre no because MPP ti so ejitu say ekoye. Do you think say a bit affected Dr. Alhaji Muhammad Bawumia the chances getting to a year 2024 elections here
Yeah, that it will affect his chances. And let me tell you
give me
how
some
politics works all over the world.
Okay.
First, for every election, there is history, Then there is what we call big issues. Then there is the campaign that people run. I think that talking about history, Ghanaians have had this 8 years, and when they change governments after 8 years. That is not written in stone, obviously, but it is a fact.
It's a fact, yeah.
Having said that, there is also what I call the gut check question. If you could vote, if Nanado was running for president in 2024, would you vote for him? If a majority of Ghanaians say yes, then it means whoever is representing his party, who is pledging to continue what Nanado would have done if he could run again, has a very good chance. If most people don't want to vote for Nanado because they are unhappy, then whoever is holding the franca on his behalf has a problem. These are fundamentals of elections. Having said that, you can run a government very badly and run a brilliant campaign. It happens. And you can also run a very good government and run a very bad campaign. So all those are factors. Having said that, of course, the problem is that Dr. Bawumia has had difficulty separating himself from Nana. So basically, we have a problem in which Ghanaians are saying we are unhappy with what has happened in the last 7 years. And you are campaigning saying we'll continue it. That's a difficult argument to make.
Doc, also, he has had difficulties. Say or 10 who are free. Nanado, in what sense? Say then or the
but don't you hear him and people who are campaigning with him defending the MPP record? That is what we mean by continuity.
Okay.
I think that Dr. Bawumia is working very hard. He's campaigning. He's very energetic. But he's also the MPP candidate, and people are unhappy with the MP. So it is a difficult argument. Then, of course, the running mates also have an influence. But having said that, so when we look at the history, that's where we are. In terms of campaigning, I think that he has been more energetic than the NDC. In terms of the issues, of course, the issues mainly are the record of the MPP. So I think that the MPP has a difficult task. And of course, this is an unusual year in that you have an independent Alan Martin. If he finds his voice, he could have an impact. What impact can he have? We don't know. But if he does, possibly he could push it to a second round. And I don't know who that will benefit if he pushes it to a second round, or whether even he can be in the second round.
Doc, when you in semi about Dr. Bawumia and of course performances of Oman Pain and Ado a bit me affecting coming up elections is it also the case is in Kofobebre recently said you almost say or contradicting who bebre as on no credit no I din no bebre sana no Dr. Bawumia side because me kai say tamana to 2016 elections that time no now on make utterances be said because of reckless borrowing and Oman Pain Mahama and a pound for omuhunu button on the crash him and it's and no bebre and I think so when it comes to interoperability mobile money transfer ne and when you are taxing kofono or kase or no dear he was against taxing transactions near but who says still idea Oman Pain Nanado or implement it sadien it's ushemwa net is damage kase pa na done any no.
Yeah, I mean he has problems. To be fair to him, no vice president is free to do whatever he wants. So obviously it wasn't his government, but his problem is that a lot of people in the government have come out to tell us about what an influential vice president he has been. So now it's difficult to accept congratulations on being an effective vice president, and then turn around and say, but they didn't listen to me. So I think that is the problem that he's struggling to try and sort out. But you know that this is an election, so it also depends on your opponent. And he is sorting out his problems, either with his relationship to what has happened in the past and with his running mate. But at the same time, the NDC and John Mahama too have had challenges in terms of their past record and moving forward. So there are challenges on both sides, and the question is who negotiates those challenges better.
Wow. Now, you be move ako honomu side na ye koso ani nyina hoka ye be call Mampanyi nana Mampanyi Mahama, sorry, Dada Mahama side kakra na afi ye the last one be etwato na yama ko na ya side waba because me who say adofo no any agi submissions no papa you are speaking a lot of omo no omo adwene enti na me busa se eye napo ni running mate. Doc, who is saying a idea Napo is up to a year Jumana, Yadia Senator, so on my boy, so to me, we near Alajiba, Umia doctor, it me we near on my boy as vice president, you know. Napo, Nymphiamo Dusa, obey me, a Juman.
Well, sir, this one has a constituency of one. So as long as the presidential candidate thinks you are okay. So actually, this second guessing of the choice of Napo, as well as the second guessing of Professor Nana Jinopukwajin. In US here, there are concerns about the choice of running mate for both Trump and Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
So these things happen all the time. So the question is, once you are in the moment, whether you can deliver. So having said that, I think Napo got out of the gates a little on the wrong side, but none of us is perfect. And you can always pick yourself up and correct whatever is wrong. But I also think that in the choice of both running mates, there are assumptions that are questionable. So, for example, people think Napo can bring Ashantis on board, maybe, but even Victor Usu, on top of the ticket in 1979, got only 57%. He got only 57% of Ashanti votes. So Ashantis are not just going to vote for an Ashanti because it's on the ticket. In actual fact, in 1996, actually, only about 4 Ashanti constituencies voted for Kufuor during the MPP primary in Sudan, even though the ordinary Ashantis voted for him. So there is also a disconnect between somebody the establishment likes and somebody the grassroots like. Okay. All those are questions that are yet to be answered by polling and positioning. So I don't know what the answers to those things are. In the same way, when you look at Professor Nana Jinopukwajin, I think that, of course, since he was chosen in 2020...
Right, and Doc, do you also think a idea on Mampanyi Nanado, so free Abenya and Kraswa, Sebu Asemka? A idea, Dr. Alaji Muhammad Dubuamia, obey a boo or minor without say, Annie a casse. Oh, Obia, Onim, Diania, you said the one bit me, I bet China the one year. But I know your teen no more be brave, and your rumors, Nina, and the credit. But, oh, did you say, and you do about cotton na Dr. Alaji Baumia, for away, as obey a coach, or pay Libya or Tetri.
We are coach, we are not for yourself, but the question is one over 5 years or one. I actually am not too worried about that because I have seen a lot of vice presidents take over, and they do things differently because once you sit on the chair, you are on the chair. And I think that the people living think that they are going to have a lot of influence, but once you leave, you realize immediately that you don't have as much influence as you thought. So I really, yes, maybe Baumia is different, he will listen, but I've seen a lot of examples where vice presidents become presidents and they don't necessarily listen to everything the president says. Even when you take H.W. Bush, who got along very well with Reagan, when he took over from Reagan, his policies were different. Even though Reagan was a very popular ex-president and had helped him get elected. You know, in 1912, Theodore Roosevelt ended up running against Taft, that he himself had virtually put into the presidency because he was unhappy with how Taft was taking decisions. And I think that one, those who are worried should look at history a little bit.
Okay. Wow. I was for Dr. Kennedy energy. Come on, Uba, and one say we are sonity in some no or chen adwene. Sanam news say, wow, team me baby. No, so what drink a fat Ghana a memu. Na ye call your name. Now, young call a year or man penny that John Dramani Mahama. And go for baby say, a dear now all bepe. Wabe be paying, I'm young in San Juma. And nothing ye two ni free akonya so and this is our bag gidi no e dey empa na wo be fa free a year Flagstaff house dog what is some be say dey na o waka fa ho.
Well, I mean, people can ask that, but of course he has a right to contest and his party has a right to elect him and they have elected him. But having said that, you know, you can look at President Mohammed in one of two ways, like you framed it. So he's already been here. We know what he can do. We rejected him and he's back. Of course, we can reject him at the polls again, but there is another argument. The argument is that maybe when he lost, he did a lot of soul searching and he reflected on his mistakes. So when he is coming back, he knows what his legacy would have been. As he has said, vindication is in the bosom of time. So he was always hoping that maybe some distant time when he is dead, somebody will look at his record and say, okay, you were not that bad. And all of a sudden, he has a chance to, in effect, correct the mistakes and do the right thing. So you can argue that he's going to say, this is one chance in a million. This is a chance to right the record. So now I don't need to be re-elected. This is my only term. So I'm going to be a transformational president. I don't owe anybody anything except history. So I'm going to do what is best for Ghana. That is also a reasonable argument.
Wow. Etina Ushemwa dog. Enipa bebre na omo kan bibi se omanpanyin Dada John Dramani Mahama ba or say ba no ha no aye very aye gray aye say dicey aye me hu say me put term no I say only 4 years biem pe ontimi ntoa so ha no say na nchemu ne tie aye 4 years pe e no say be di ana obetimi asa atoa so akonanim.
Ontimi ntoa so say 4 years you can do 2 separate 4-year terms. When he took over from Mills, it was less than a year. And that doesn't count. So he got 1 full term. He's entitled to 1 other term. But having said that, you can do a lot in 4 years. You know, I hear a lot of Africans and Ghanaians say, oh, Abrofuna, they've had a lot of time to develop. Yeah, and we haven't had time. Our problem is not time. Our problem is competence. And let me tell you a story. In 1979, 2 things happened. Somebody best on the Ghanaian scene called Rollins. But at the same time, Deng Xiaoping was resurrected for about the 4th time in China. In 14 years, that is by 1994, Deng Xiaoping was done with all what he was going to do, and Rollins had 6 more years. In actual fact, Deng Xiaoping operated in a structure in which he didn't have as much control as Rollins had over Ghana. And yet, the programs that Deng Xiaoping put in place lifted 600 million people out of poverty and gave China stability for the last 30 years. So our problem is not time. It's good ideas, good direction, patriotism.
And who share a running mate, Professor Jane Nana Opoku Ajiman. Bibre say so a week like me and just saw your bantio, but you know, na hoki kano and said that anything, but Cordina Koyanka almost I elected and say on my MBD and this Amanu Kono and him towards 2024 election. There's an obi fufro. What do you know who's saying?
Well, I mean, there are two sides to the argument. Yes, you know, people have told me about maybe you should have picked somebody from Volta region or Greater Accra, or maybe even Ashanti too, you know, to battle for the Ashanti votes. But Nana Jane Opoku Agyemang, it's a substantive choice. He knows he's run a university before, he's been a minister before. So, and actually, when they outdoored her, her speech was very powerful. It was a very good speech. You got to grant her that. And looking at some of Napo's stumbles, it's very difficult to say that Nana Jane Opoku Agyemang is weak, because sometimes misdirected strength can be a problem. That is what will lead you to go and say Kwame Nkrumah. You know, so I think that Nana Jane Opoku Agyemang is okay. I think there are valid arguments for other people who could have been picked, but she's a good choice.
And where the audio on the firm, Mamma, and Chairman Etiki to Abby. So I statement now, a Napo Miki about Mukwam Nkrumah, Obia, Abambia, Nuaba, Juma Sin, or my pain and Nadro Nis. No. So I statement no, because a very heated argument within the last 1 week, you know, and Kofaka Wasem. And also, yeah, the idea bit to me affecting Upa, you are a honor 2 bombs. Oh, yes, so. Now, 2 bombs are now a bit more affecting.
A bit more affecting, but you know, none of us is perfect.
Okay.
Nobody should refer to Nkrumah as Kwame Nkrumah or Kwame Nkrumah. He is our best president by a wide margin. And by the way, to the extent that there is a ranking, I think beside Nkrumah, Kufuor probably has been our best president. Okay. He's far behind Nkrumah, but he's been our best president. To say Nana Addo has done more for Ghana than Kufuor, that was strange. That was strange. So that was a clear mistake, and I hope he will move on and watch how he speaks.
How he speaks. Okay. Now, Doc, me the last question be no. Na enke ye dia pim na next time, because me say adofo no eni agi say next time be betimi asa ado aba na ye atwetwe komo. And he said, who is the best when it comes to managing the economy of Ghana? So 2 political parties, why na o feel say omo better managers?
It is difficult to tell, but because in fact, they both keep running to the IMF in spite of the talk. You know, I think that what will make either party better is Parliament sitting up. Because all these debts, they have to run them by Parliament. So if Parliament was doing what it needs to do and knocking down the bad deals and the bad debts, it will make both sides better. Having said that, I think based on the record that we have, both sides have been bad. Kufuor was a little better than both NDC and MPP governments.
Okay. Mate, the old can answer. Not just in a nutshell, no, your share current idea. Ubia Janiko IMF. It said Ubia better manager of the economy. Na just say empire na say ekoso abona Ghana etimi efa ne ntuma pe efra. Now Doc, debia ya na ka na the economy no ene eyi abam. Employment dia eno so yetimi hunu say it becomes even at some point, you know, national security threat in the sense that emebunu nkofo nya adwuma anye e wo man mu a it created a lot of tension e ma chronobone crime ekọ esropa Argentina a bibiman de bia your friend is saying when it comes to employment near Numa honey you fall short pa and ka raw materials no so there and ka your hot na bro free be free is it because you knew good your friend is saying better me who said make agreement or me refi term and person this show when they come to us say omuni be business ye hunu bottom fa crunch mu ana ntina agija yes I wa abibi man mu ana
okay, you bottom for crunch. We have bad leadership. Let me give you an idea. Africa. These are figures from about 2010 Blair Commission. We have 46% of the world's arable land. It means prime agricultural land. We have almost half of all the world's land. In addition to that, we have the youngest population. By about 2010, the figures were that we were spending about $50 billion a year importing food. Food. And our youth are unemployed and they are walking across the Sahara and swimming across the Mediterranean and dying in the deserts and in the seas. Why can't anybody put together a program in which the 50 billion we use to import food will go to support agriculture that will employ the youth and feed us? I don't understand. Why is it that we graduate 10 million people from our universities across Africa, and 1 year later, half of them are unemployed when we need technicians and artisans, and we are using scarce resources to train people in Dondology and ancient civilization and classical Greek? I don't understand. It's leadership.
Wow, that is it was for Commander. I had the papa baby ananka. Me person be do. Who say a broad subject? Dog, where the best I say you be more near to I come to chair so especially employment near normal keka hon. Ye call about 2 million. As I say 10 now yourself and so you're busy. Or US but it's all permanent my pa and I eat me a try and come to chair so. Okay, ye call your name no Ora Alan Kwajote Martin. Doc, the chances about you saying
he has potential, but he hasn't done much. My view is that to succeed, given where he is, Alan needs to be radical to attack the establishment, because his is by definition an anti-establishment disruptive candidacy. But so far, he has shown a reluctance to attack the establishment. It seems like he's too much of the establishment to attack it. And if he doesn't attack it, he won't do well.
Nti just say enya dia wo hwe about to komedia obetimi a perform match biasa this time.
Well, I mean, we still have some months to go. That's why I say that he has a high ceiling, but so far he hasn't shown the willingness to do what he needs to do. I think that, his strength is his experience. He has a good record on corruption. So if I was him, I would attack corruption with both hands over fist.
Let's say Oshe, in the next 4 years, so I do or Oshe Kwan over Fasua obetimi.
No. In 4 years, he won't be viable. We're talking about the next 4 months. Okay. Because in 4 years, nobody's going to follow him.
Okay.
Nice. Unless it's an incumbent president.
Okay, Matthias here, pa. May cheddar. Dog, what follow cheddar kakra? I say, remember so follow Emmanuel pa.
I haven't seen anything in the polling that shows he will make any difference.
Now, cheddar, ne ideologies, ni no more person yema or minor musa.
Not really, because Ghana's problem is not ideas. Actually, Even Nanado's government that we spend a lot of time trashing has had good ideas. So did John Mahama, so did Mel, so did before. Our problem has never been ideas. It has been execution and corruption.
Just until corruption, so you can be said, and my politicians, Musumaka, say you cannot totally eradicate corruption from the system, but you can minimize it a bit unattractive. And also, not to say, still no corruption will always be there. And I dog,
yeah, it will always be there, but you just put your finger on it. The question is that it must be a small side issue. The problem is that right now it is the main issue. I think that this government, regardless of what policy is put on the table, those who want to siphon public resources into private pockets are more powerful than those who are doing it for public interest. So that overcomes the policy's virtues.
Matthias here, Matthias here. Now, dog, you cry no last year, and we really appreciate the time out there. My Nepal, me attracting Komafa, Ghana, America, near you. And it's what's a year document be a rounds. I have friend a Japadie document. What it be? I try to assume.
Yes, I've heard about it.
Have you had the chance to read that book and document?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the contents. Actually, the first time I saw it, I dismissed this as false. But unfortunately, there are things in it that keep happening. So it makes it difficult to keep saying it's false when things in it keep happening.
Hey, Ejina, also do any idea pa unu say because now you cry a year Gabi Ochidako be tweety John Sembi say dear na chese book enye you know mudi mu re be shem Africa dey almost say a opposition for natural a book no eti dog what follow Japadie document na according to say the okay and no man na ewom no keeps on happening. Not just say any people trimu pose or mudi Ghana because our direction I
think that the first time I saw it, I thought the English wasn't good enough. That you know, whatever you think of people like Gabi and Bedia too, they are good writers, so they wouldn't write stuff like this. But the problem is that for one thing, they control the media in Ghana, and they've done that for a long time. So I don't understand why they ignored it for this long. That's one. But the major thing is that it is true that things in it are happening. You know, I got the point that maybe some things may have been put in after it happened already. But, you know, when they talk about, for example, changing the person in charge of state insurance and putting the property in it, those things, you know, they are happening in front of our eyes. So I don't know how you say the whole document is false.
It's
you know,
false.
Of course, people dispute some parts of the Bible, but you know, when you see a miracle, you say the Bible might be true. So,
hey, dog, not just say, Abraham and Osaka Japadie document I read here, and I would dismiss it at the time say, oh, where they are false.
Maybe about 2 years ago.
Hey,
About 2 years ago, somebody in the government sent it to me, and when I read it, I told you like couldn't be true.
at the time, no 2 years ago, now once I can a Japadie document now and then almost a year cran and phobia answer that. But I did actually 2 years ago, no, it be happened 4 months ago. Pepe, a Japadie document. It is dog, I said to cry, I bought me pizza. It is here, would we need, I didn't know what shot. That just ask a nipper being at Tanasina or more person the Ghana fat.
Yeah, I think that there are two possibilities. Of course, it's possible, like they say, that their enemies wrote it, but it is also true that whoever wrote it may have been known what they were thinking about and decided to put it on the ground. It is also possible that an insider wrote it and didn't mean it to leak, and it leaked.
And I just say air course super pepper. Okay, dog. I just say they no ebe see her because on Saka 2 years ago. Now what my kind document 2 years ago. Na afe moon some cry be happen be 2 months ago. Ya be happen 3 months ago. And some now kind 2 years no. the same thing happen and they say emu odin kakra na say emu rem na ye de bepem hanom dog ye de bepem ha etiefo ne ahwefo no a omo wa no say epemre ene wodi ya wacheche no mo bebre na nkomode no aye omode nkomode na aye omode pa na nkomo twetwe no aso omudem ti dog we de ye be sa pemre pa na ye de waba na ye no wa twetwe nkomo ye be da wase ansa na obekọ no in fact etiefo ne adofo a mo hweme mesem moma yenda Dr. Arthur Kennedy ase munana se mame in the sense say said the opinion status tie main fan back door meka na nimu ha no biehu since radio days many years ago time nina main free dog once crank as dog pacho me say twetwe komo fa Ghana ho no aka dem say o unipa wo followers enye 100,000 to me ma onye bi da enti mesemo munana se wo comment section ho emma me tem bia na mabone pono no we are making himself available say if it's about Ghana dia obeba be kire na adwe say ombusa onka say bia say onya 20,000 ho anwan ansa na onka bi da na yemi de say ene oba munsumani age nkomo na ya twetwe no nyame enhia no pa dog ye beda wase e was akwan so because all these years be pem na ye da se pa because nyo bia e na oba frɛ no kra afa na obi kwo hwɛ e na nipa no ni din mi din kra bia ebi mutimi bus ye frɛ ne san ansa na wa hwɛ de obɛyɛ nti nyame show aha mona na se mame mona na se dog atiefo ye da also asepa na nka me pese me de ne ba video no so say de mu ye no na so me software yi ha me a me try na ma systemize ho no na afi next time ye be hwɛ ne clear na ye ne na atwetwe enkomo no okay dog nyame show ene omre ye da asepa that's it yo ye tia US fo nyina ye tia US fo nyina okay I was for and Dr. Arthur Kennedy. Dr. Arthur Kennedy already Ghana ni said also Ghana ni no Ghana hu hia no nti abrani thank you na na ma adofo ni nyina sa ta mana nkomo no course won na me ntimi interrupt and na mo ase mo am the stars e ba yi nyina nyame enhram. It was strictly politics and mo am comment here na mutimi share bi me say share bi ema na yenko ye wie impo no still obeto so obetimi ahye bi e for my Ghana ho enye nipa nyina na minim pass enye nipa nyina na politics but at least Ghana ho be hia yen yes tobe na ye no ana ye duba bia ye de hopim a na afi ya get serious kakra na ya twe akuku damfo kakra sei e de aba na no ma twetwe nkomo me ye sure say nsem o kan no bi wo na wonnim ene enam ni nim dia e wo soro na yene na twetwe nkomo ene no oso apiki bibi edi free honom nyame enhia pa Minister Bright Kubensu Diamond the lyric there we say we feel Dr. Arthur Kennedy Diamond Scoops ye be kasa hu comment near ya na ocho ye be kasa because na me person me interrupt no say me jana no flow wa church no mamu fa Ghana mamu na ye be sad na ba nyame enhia no me da na sepa because me say me more ne pono all from radio so be pemene wapupu ne ti say oh why ne nipa ye say no onye bida oba o mrenko a obe ka say okay meye na oni wa atwetwe enkomo na waka na adwene enye obi a ne bepe me will say ma me afu a charge MPP before no but also MPP ni but o kana adwene Dr. Arthur Kennedy kana adwene fi upo ti say nyambo a next week no ebe mo de na ye de NDC ye nwa baako enso aba ye ni pay for the betwe mu nyina aba don't worry Nyami Samu and Jonathan ni tete. Oh, you are late. Iti me so obetima akọ back na wati enkomo twetwe ani Dr. Arthur Kennedy. Watoto bomb baby afem. Ozo ohwe mu a enkoyie ame. Just waka na adwene. Ebi mu be fa ne say ebi before the ebi omu befu sisia wanka bia ma ye sa but ono so de ohunu no ene waka no pepepe ebi before so what de no ka wa say ebi wo ha nipa ne ba back door ono ani MPP before mpanyifo yi no wa be ka so de okay so ba public no wa be ba hye no o se sa suban enye kra eno bebre ena okay nyame sam nyina na ɔnka me ho meda mu nyinaa mo ase mu a mutumi baeɛ ɛnyɛ deɛ na wopɛ ntimi yɛ sɛ ɛnyɛ no na wobaeɛ sɛ woba bɛhwɛ deɛ wopɛ no edu hɔ a no waba nyame hyia mo paa na ɔnyɛ mo kɛseɛ yɛkɔ yɛnim meda kɔ atopom ɛte sɛ meda ase